Hello and welcome to the second devlog of the hotel. Now, I know I should have made plenty of devlogs as I made this instead of just showing a near completed game, and there are plenty of other projects I've been making that show the same fate. Also, there will be spoilers for items and enemies, as I saw that most people preferred to skip them parts. Not everyone, but most people, and I'll make sure to include a spoiler for both rather than just the enemies. Let's start off with the art style just like last time. So firstly, the skybox. I made a new and barely noticeable skybox. Considering that I have no idea how to make a skybox, I did follow a tutorial for this. However, I'm definitely going to keep this as a little package I can add to my other games, as well as just adding on as I go along. I think that'll be pretty fun. I can't pronounce the name of the guy who made this. I would absolutely butcher it, so I'll just show it on screen. And the first thing to take note of when you look at the skybox settings and things like that is that it looks fairly similar to the HDRP procedural skybox, and I quite like having that. All the little bits of settings all over the place. It's great. I can just tinker around with stuff and make things look just right. Sun and Moon. The sun and moon follow in opposites to each other by using a small script attached to the directional light. Simply put it, the sun is shown in the same direction as the directional light, and it's the opposite side for the moon. The moon also uses a texture, and any fall off is just used by using the balloon post-processing. Clouds. This is my own addition to the skybox and I'm pretty happy with it. I have sliders to control the scaling or height of the clouds, how much cloud there is, their opacity, colour, etc. There are two options for large clouds and small clouds. I can even add a toggle so that I could switch between textures and noise. I can even change how much cloud coverage there is. Even though there aren't any shadows, this is something I do want to add in the future, maybe for other projects rather than this one. The stars. The stars are a fun thing to add, though they don't move as the sky moves yet. They behave in a similar way to the clouds with the height, amount, opacity, etc. I added a twinkle effect to them by overlaying a noise map that scrolls on top of it to make the stars look dimmer. The stars themselves use a colour gradient as well as a random dot range combined with the original noise map that is used to show each star. This determines what colour each star should be. If I get rid of all the power and you just see the normal noise map, it just looks like colourful noise. The colour gradient itself also uses HDR so that it seems brighter in the middle. Day and night. I would like to finally mention that the stars and the day and night colours blend depending on what angle the directional light is pointing at. On top of this, I added a horizon glow that shows the sunrise and sunset. I may add extra stuff that allows me to use different colours for the sunrise and sunset, however using the same colour will work fine for now. I finally added an extra gradient effect that makes the top part of the sky darker by inverting the zenith sky blend and adding it to the day sky colour. It just looks a lot more natural. The UI. I made a change with the controls in the top right corner. They will now show controller controls when a controller is used at the same time. I also made the item arrow in the bottom left disappear when you don't hold anything. The game mechanics. I finally got round to texturing and UV mapping the models for the player and enemies. Here's what the player looks like. He has a goofy face. It's just something I drew as the player wouldn't really see it fully, so having just basic features like eyes, mouth, nose, ears was just an easier choice. With the new model I made, I rigged it and the enemy models in Blender. When importing them back into Unity, I used the animation rigging package to give myself more control over the animations using inverse kinematics. When set up correctly, I can move the individual limbs using a singular game object with a hint to help bend the elbows or knees. This combined with blend trees and the default Unity animation blending allows me to combine lots of different animations to my liking. I also use multiple animation layers that lerp in weight when needed, like being hurt when grabbing an item or holding an item. I also made the game object that holds all the items apparent to the character's hand, so it just looks more natural rather than it just popping into existence and the hand grabbing it in midair. I also added certain points so that the head can look around or aim at a certain spot, as well as making the whole body of the player raise up and down or move around all over the place, depending on where the feet were positioned. I finally added a basic animation for turning. Player rebalancing. I made some simple changes with the player's movement speeds and turning speeds. I made the movement slower to match the animations, and I made the turning speed faster. Player dialogue. The player can now speak in the form of dialogue boxes, where they talk about their experience with certain characters and objects, as well as dialogue for events. I made it so that the player can skip or continue by pressing space or the north button on the controller. Player bugs. I fixed a bug that made the player move and control the character while still in the main menu. It's nothing too serious, but it was kind of funny. The terminal. I fixed a simple terminal bug where there was just dead fighting between the text boxes and the masking. Nice and simple. Items. This is the spoiler warning for items and enemies, as the enemies takes place after the items. So if you don't want to be spoiled by anything, just skip to the timestamp that is after the enemies. It should be sounds. The motion detector. The motion detector got a major buff in its upgrades, on top of the normal range and battery increase. At level 2 it can show the entrance and exit points with a white blip, and at level 3 it will show all the items as a dark green blip. The documents. Some of the documents now have reference images so that the player can get a somewhat more detailed look on what certain characters and items are. I also fixed a couple of story inconsistencies and grammar errors. The enemies. As I said earlier, I got round to texturing and UV mapping all the character models, as well as making some alterations to certain characters. This is what they look like, if curiosity got the better of you. I'm quite happy with how they look, though some look a little bit more goofy than others. I don't mind, I'm quite happy with them either way. There was also a couple of bug fixes where a certain enemy just didn't want to run away, and instead just stayed stuck in place for some reason. Don't know why, it should have been fixed now. Sounds. The footsteps now play when a raycast, which is attached to each foot, interacts with the ground. This is far better than using an animation, because that couldn't be properly synced up with moving left, right, forward, backward, sprinting, crouching, and it also stops the whole possibility of having multiple footstep sounds playing at once, which did happen. This is for player and enemies. It's a simple little script where I just add normal footstep sounds and I just add the foot game object point in the list of transforms. I also added metal footstep sounds. This is important for certain events. Finally, there was a weird bug with loading and playing ambience and music sounds, where the game would just freeze for a short amount of time. This was fixed by lowering the quality and selecting the compressing with memory option. And that's it. This is marginally shorter than the first one, considering the first one I was basically just explaining everything. This is just the second one. I think the next one should be the last one, as the next one should just include just a couple of things. In fact, I am doing private testing at the moment, and that should help me do a couple of rebalancing for the player, the enemies, the items, and just see how everything goes. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed the little OST music video I put down. I wanted to do a while ago, but I completely forgot, and I kept forgetting for multiple nights on end, because I just got distracted with this stuff. But yeah, that's it, and I will see you in the next one.